What's up, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great Saturday morning. We are entering week 1 of college football. Miami just defeated UAB 31-14. And man, after a great win, why not have a very informative Miami Hurricane content creator and Christopher Stock come on the show? Christopher, thank you so much, man, for coming on. It really is an honor.
Paul, I definitely appreciate it. And when you asked me to do this, I just, the big thing with you, man, like you have such a positive energy and I really love that. And definitely, congrats on your channel and keep growing and keep doing your thing, man.
Appreciate it, Christopher. Thank you so much. And Christopher is he runs Inside the U. It's a YouTube channel. He's a part of 247 Sports. He just hit 10K. So man, if you haven't heard about him, I don't know how, but go subscribe to his channel. Go check him out, man. A lot of great content, and he's covering the team 24/7, man. So Christopher, thanks again for coming on, and let's get into it, man. Hey, what were your first thoughts against UAB? I know it's a new offense, new offensive line coach, new quarterback. I mean, we were all excited. So what were your first thoughts on Rhett Lashley's offense?
Well, I think with Manny Diaz, what he said afterwards, and I do believe that this was the case, he felt like they did what they needed to do to win, and felt like, and when you're looking at the game pretty early on, you kind of understood that they can run the ball against this team, getting success there. And they really just looked like they were like, okay, we're just going to pound the run. They talked all preseason camp about how much they wanted to run the ball, listening to Rhett Lashley talk about his offense. And we talked so much, and I'm sure you did too, Paul, just so much about the passing game, the spread, D'Eriq King and his ability to pass the ball, maybe some of the deficiencies last year in the passing game. So everyone was excited, speed on the outside, let's get the ball to them. But one thing that caught my mind throughout the offseason was Rhett Lashley was like, hold up, wait a minute. We can run the ball. I want to run the ball. I want a balanced team. And actually on a podcast, I heard him say that he described his offense because we've been looking for labels, right? Like we've been wondering, what is this thing going to be? Is it the spread, the air raid? He actually called it the power spread. And I thought that was very telling because that really said that, like, hey, he does definitely want to run the ball. And we saw it in the first game. And my first impressions was they could run the ball. They had 3 guys that they were very high on. I thought Cameron Harris looked better in that first game than he did, essentially all of his career. I know he had that good game against Georgia Tech, but he looked really good. And you like what you heard from the freshman, a lot of hype, obviously. But did they deliver? And I thought they showed those 2 flashes with the 25-yarder for Knighton and the 33 for Chaney. I thought that was good. Obviously, things to work on. I guess first impression, I know we'll get into it, but yes, they've got to be better moving forward. But I think it was a solid start, and I felt like they were in control of the game, even though the score was tight.
Yeah, no, I think running the football, this was Miami's best offensive performance. Running the ball, I've seen in quite a while. I mean, like you said perfectly, Cameron Harris, this is probably his best career game at Miami. I think he just had a great start to his junior campaign. The sky's the limit for him. I think everyone kind of held their breath when he hyperextended his knee and was gingerly walking off the field. So I hope he's healthy. I think we'll be good to go. We're fine, it seems like, but we'll find out more information. Jaylen Knighton has a second gear to him. I haven't seen a running back like that in Miami. A lot of comparisons to Dalvin Cook from Florida State. Man, 8 or 9 carries, 59 total rushing yards in his debut. I would have liked to see him get the ball a little bit more, but I was very happy with his play. And Don Chaney, man, this is a bowling ball. I mean, it's going to take 2 guys to take him down. One-on-one, it's a mismatch every time. So running the football, I was extremely happy. I expected a rusty pass offense. The only thing I would have liked to see, I felt like we were throwing down the field a lot, and it just wasn't working. Let's get a lot of drag routes in. Let's get a lot of slants in. I understand it's going to be a run-heavy offense with a lot of quarterback design plays, kind of like the power spread that Rhett Lashley ran with Nick Marshall at Auburn, and D'Eriq King is the elite dual-threat quarterback at the college football level. So I understand, hey, let's get our offense into a rhythm. First game of the year, we didn't even have spring practice, so I think it was expected to have a vanilla offense and just get ready for Louisville. I just would have also liked to see our tight ends incorporated more. Were you surprised that the tight ends weren't targeted at all? Will Mallory didn't even get a look the whole game.
Paul, one thing that I was talking about with Will Mallory in the preseason on the site, and because you're just kind of looking back and, the numbers Will put up in those last 3 games, Brevin mostly out, the 4 catches in each game. And I was looking at Will's career, and I think everybody's been kind of hoping Will and Brevin would be this duo. And Will went on the radio in fall camp saying, yes, I want to be that duo that we've talked about since we got here. The one thing that caught my mind, Paul, was they've only had one game in their career where they've caught more than one pass in the same game. Yes. I find that very interesting. And because you've talked about this duo, and then you saw it last night, kind of epitome of what's been going on. Yes, I think Will played close to 20, 30 snaps, so he is out there and just not targeted for different reasons. And you mentioned Brevin Jordan didn't get really involved till the second half. So I just think, I guess if we're taking in a snapshot in a one-game sample, yes, but I'm not worried about, particularly with Brevin. I think he's going to be fine. He will be featured. You saw on the touchdown, that was great to see. I feel like Brevin's got to get in the end zone more just to complete himself as a more of a tight end. And I'm saying that because the tight end won the Mackey Award here with just one touchdown. So I understand like it is difficult, but I think that it's going to happen. I think the passing game you mentioned with the short drag route, I'll say that I'm okay with the deep routes. I think they're going to be fine. They're going to hit those. And honestly, if we really sit back and think of it, that's what we want, right? Like that's what we want to see from this Miami offense. Let's throw the ball downfield. Let's utilize the speed. Mike Harley will get involved there. I felt like Derek maybe, just a little bit off. You got to remember only 4 games last year. He spoke about playing with a heavy heart. So I think if this is the best Miami that we're going to see the rest of the year, it's going to be a long year, but I think that there were positive signs, and I think that they'll build on that.
Yeah, I mean, first game of the year, and plus Derek King also did mention in his post-game interview, he was thinking about his father a lot. I mean, new school, new offense, new teammates. You lose your father, tragically. That was the first time he's ever played a football game without his father in attendance. So a lot's going through his mind. Not to mention, there's no energy in the stadium. It's an empty stadium. So I'm not worried. I'm really not. And, I want to pick your brain. How did you feel about our offensive line? First game under Garen Justice, I felt like we did a very good job run blocking.
I think starting with the offensive line, let's go right to Jared Williams, right tackle, transfer from Houston. He actually graded out the best among the offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus. I really enjoy that site, the analytics of it. It's great for, overall player grades, particularly on the offensive line. I think we can kind of see certain things with the running backs, receivers, even quarterback, but they do definitely take a deeper dive into how guys are playing. So anyways, start with Jared at right tackle there, did a good job. Actually the third highest grade on the team. So that was good. I think it's a good sign because, again, you need someone you wanted him to be a guy to really solidify that tackle spot. And it felt like for at least one game in totality with the offensive line, obviously you got to give him respect for the running game, right? I mean, 337 yards, the 3 touchdowns. Anybody that was in there in almost any running play they wanted to run, whether it was Derek King, which we haven't talked about yet in the running game, but he was great. And, any of the backs, they all kind of did their thing.
Yep.
But the passing protection, I do felt like, some of the incompletions were partly due because the pocket was collapsing a little bit too much. I think with what we saw last year, these guys do still have something to prove with that. Now, Derek's going to get used to it. And I think what we're going to see too with Derek, not just his running ability, but we're going to see him move out a little bit and then throw on the run. I think we might see that a little bit more as he gets a better feel of what to expect from the O-line. But they've got to be better, especially with this stretch coming up, Paul, with Louisville, Florida State, Clemson. That's a very important 3 games in Miami's season.
Yeah, no, in Florida State, I mean, they have one of the best defensive lines in the nation, I think. Marvin Wilson, very good defensive tackle. A lot of people said that he could have gone in early on last year if he didn't want to, if he wanted to leave early, So he did return under Mike Norvell. So look out, man. I mean, they will be tested moving forward. One thing I will say, it's nice to have a quarterback that does bail out your offensive line. Man, Derek King kind of reminded me of like Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray running the football. I mean, he was making some moves, man. It really was nice to see it. We can tell he is an elite runner. So I think as the season moves forward, even if we're not up to par where we want to be, I still think Derek King, just his running ability is going to change the game just solely off of that. So it's kind of like the Pat White effect, I feel like, and Cam Harris is our Steve Slaton. That's kind of what I'm seeing in this offense. And Christopher, I talked about it last night on my Miami Hurricanes After Dark episode. If we go run heavy, I think literally we can win. We can have a winning season if we do a lot of zone reads RPOs strictly with Cam Harris and De'Aaron King as our two guys running the offense. I mean, they are the X factor of this offense after game one.
I think this whole season, and I think you saw in the first game. Look, it all comes down to De'Aaron King, right? I mean, we can sit in here and talk about how maybe guys need to be more involved, or the pass protection needs to be a little bit better. Even the receivers, maybe they need to get open a little bit more, and these kind of things. But it all comes back to De'Aaron King. He's such a playmaker, and I've been struggling a little bit with the words, Paul, explaining De'Aaron, in the sense that I do not expect him to have one of these drop-off games where he plays so poorly that they're not moving the ball, if he's in a rut, those kind of things. I don't think his minimum is going to put Miami at such a disadvantage the way we've seen quarterback play over the last few years. I think at a minimum, he's going to be fine and he's going to figure things out. Now, at the maximum, at the getting the most out of him, we've seen what he's been able to do. Like, he can throw for 300, run for 100. He had a 7-touchdown game. You know, I think those things are great with De'Aaron in the sense I don't think he's going to let you guys or let Miami just completely look like they fall apart. I think he's always going to keep coming. We saw it in the first game, right? First half, you know, maybe they had some empty drives, but then all of a sudden every time he gets the ball, it just has that sense that he can make plays enough to drive the team down the field. His running ability, you watch him run. We've seen guys scramble, right? I mean, we've seen guys move around and things like that. But with De'Aaron, when he does take off, he's got a purpose. He's got a creative mind. He knows where he wants to go. And you saw it in the first game, 9 yards after contact. He can make people miss. He just has a sense of where to go and how to get there. And also, it doesn't feel like, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like he's taken off automatically when he gets the ball. I think he's looking, waiting, and then he'll take off. And I think he's going to get that feel. I think we're going to see a big game in these next 3 games from him. I think he's going to do even more than what we saw first game. You mentioned everything, and the atmosphere was another thing. That's going to be something that everybody's got to get used to. But I think we're going to see one of those games, and I think you're going to see De'Aaron really put together one of the, you know, what you expect from him. And I think he's such a difference maker. I think Miami fans are going to, you know, realize very soon how great he is, and you know, and why he had that 50 touchdown season, which is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. No. And I think he broke Tim Tebow's record of consecutive 16 straight games of 1 touchdown passing, 1 touchdown running. So, I mean, he's doing something right. I mean, Tim Tebow, one of the best college quarterbacks of all time. If you win the Heisman Trophy, I mean, you're one of the greatest of all time, hands down, no argument. So, hey, he's doing something right. Christopher, I want to pick your brain because I know you're at the practices. You cover the team. You're always there. You're in it. Keyshawn Smith, Xavier Restrepo. They got a lot of snaps. They were putting up good numbers during fall practice. We saw this in the past with Jeremiah Payton last spring. He put up a lot of good numbers. Why aren't we seeing these freshmen get more playing time when Marshall Few is out there?
Yeah, well, and Paul, just to real quick, I mean, it's just different this year. First off, not being able to be at practices because of the pandemic. Right. But I will say we did get, I'll say luckily, got a sense of them in the spring. The 4 practices, able to be out there, not just able to be out there. One of them, we got to see the full practice. So I have seen those guys because they all enrolled early, all of them, all the freshmen. The Michael Redding III was limited with a hand injury. So I at least have some sense on what they were doing in the spring. What I will say, and one thing, let's start with Keyshawn Smith. I was able to talk to his trainer, mentor, coach in the offseason when he went back to San Diego. Got a chance to talk to him about how Keyshawn's doing, what kind of player was he in high school, because I think a lot of us, you know, Keyshawn essentially just got thrown on everybody. Like, here he is, he's committing without visiting and the whole thing, and he signed and he was enrolled, and it happened real quick. So I think there's still a lot of catch up getting to know him as a player from San Diego Lincoln. The thing that stood out to me with Keyshawn, and we saw it in spring practice, is that speed, that playmaking ability. I actually talked to one of his teammates too, and he was like, he's the fastest guy, and like, he's so fast, and everywhere we went, he made plays. People couldn't understand why he was underrated. So I think that you're going to like that. The one thing too is he's improving his size and strength. He's working, you know, I mentioned the trainer played in the NFL. So he's got guys around him in that program that are really helping him, that have been there and played with some, you know, have done some big things. So I think he's in good hands. I think he's continuing to work. He does have that speed. Personally, if you want to talk about getting him on the field more, I'm surprised that he's not getting more of a look in the return game. I think kick return or punt return. Yes. And I think we saw what happened with Mark there in the punt return. But yeah, I think it's tough too. You know, I think everybody, it's that difficult thing in your head, right? You're happy for Marshall Few, former walk-on, gets his
Right.
opportunity, does his thing, but then it's like, okay, but there's still a limit. And I think partly because, look, even if you're a fan of Marshall, we've not seen him catch a pass until that game, and
Right.
the scholarship players are scholarship players for reasons. You brought him in. You mentioned Xavier Restrepo, one of those guys that's a hardworking guy. You always hear that in the sense that he's got that work ethic. You saw it maybe in his training videos over the summer. Just a guy that can do things out of the slot. I just think, if they want to move him in, I think there's still room for those guys, because if you go 4 receivers, Wiggins, Harley, Pope, and Payton, those 4, then that next group, you got to figure those freshmen are going to fill gaps, with Smith and Restrepo. Maybe Redding gets in there. He did in the first game. Only 3 true freshmen played, and Redding was one of them. So I think that there's maybe time for those guys moving forward. But the only thing is, it's an ACC slate, right? So
Yes.
they've got to get in as backups. That's the reality of it. So we'll see. I think I'd be surprised, even though Payton didn't play last year much. I'd still be surprised if they don't have room for the second group of receivers when you're running 80 plays a game. So I think that they'll get in there. I think those are the 2 that you mentioned. I do think that they are a little bit ahead of, I like Smith a little bit better than Redding and Worsham, and then Restrepo is just different because he plays that slot. So I just think they can find roles, and we'll see how the season goes. I think keep your eye on them for sure.
Absolutely. And, speaking of receivers, I would like to see Jeremiah Payton as well excel this season. I just interviewed Lance Leggett. I mean, he was a speedster himself, former 5-star recruit going to Miami. I asked him, hey, what wide receiver in this position group catches your eye? Jeremiah Payton. He said it instantly. Do you think, last year Coach Stubblefield said he wasn't mature enough to play, but everyone said this kid his talent is through the roof. Do you think we'll see? I know we saw him sometimes incorporate with the game plan against UAB. Do you think he can develop into our go-to receiver, go-to guy? Do you see that same potential that other former players are stating, other people are stating as well?
I do, and I think immediately you look at his physical attributes, right? He's got a good size. He's lean, but he's quick and fat. Like, he's got a good balance of different things, and everybody, even if you're excited about him before, he was a top-ranked guy in Miami's class coming in last year. Okay, so you like that, and he doesn't play much, but then you get a new wide receivers coach, and what does he do? He comes out and say, this guy's got first-round talent. Yes. You want to talk about expectations or excitement? You're generating that, which is fine and great, but he was not involved nearly as much. But the only thing I would say is not many guys were, right? Like, they only completed, I think, about 15 passes. Right. Nkosi got a couple, so 17, I think. But my point is, there's got to be room, right? If we're talking 3 receivers, there's got to be room for a 4th in Payton. I think he's the big thing with him. I do like his abilities. I don't know if he's going to be that go-to receiver this year, just because with the guys in front of him, he's going to have to go ahead and pass all those guys. But I do think, and maybe it's not even going to happen. We'll see next year how that'll work out. But I think just with Mike Harley, I think that he'll end up leading the receivers as a senior, the speed, the connection with King. But I think I think you got to get Payton involved. I really like his physical attributes. I definitely think he should have played last year, definitely more than the 4 games. I didn't understand it. And Paul, what was a little bit crazy too was he's a guy that enrolled early in January, heard a lot of positive stuff in spring ball. Then all of a sudden you get to fall, and all of a sudden he's just out of the mix, barely plays 4 games. So I say 4 because they only caught 1 pass. And then, and I feel like sometimes with that kind of stuff, you're almost like a little bit lucky that they stick around, right? Like, he definitely should have been expecting more playing time than that, I would assume. I'm sure it was a difficult season for him. And, just to have the year, but he comes back. And so we'll see. I definitely think there's room for him. I talked about the backups. There's definitely room for Jeremiah Payton in this offense. And I think it's got to come. I think we're going to see it. And I think it's too hard to ignore his abilities and his playmaking stuff. Again, he does some things a little bit different than the other 3.
Absolutely. Hey, we're all waiting. He was wide open in the end zone for a touchdown. King just messed that one up, but we'll get there. I know he'll get his looks, and his wide receiver coach is vouching for him that the talent is there. The future is bright for Jeremiah Payton. Before we get into defense, Christopher, listen, I'm very critical on special teams at Miami because that was our identity as a program. Okay, people say Beamer ball, that's completely overrated. Miami ran special teams as a whole. punt returning game has not been the same for quite a while. Okay. Mark Pope, first game jitters. I don't know what it is. You can't turn the ball over on punts. Okay. We saw that with Jeff Thomas. It changes the outcome of a game. It's an easy 6 points for the other team. It's just easy field position change. You're giving your defense that just came off the field, hey, you got to go back on because, hey, we just messed up a punt return. He also almost ran in. He made it into a nice play, his second return, but he almost got a safety. He literally ran 10 yards back into the end zone. I would have loved to see Gervin Hall get more action. I understand you don't want to disrupt his confidence. What's going on at punt return? Do you believe Mark Pope can be the man for the job? Because I'm nervous. I really am.
Right, Paul. And if I were to ask you maybe before the season, maybe you were probably nervous going in, right? Like maybe yeah. I know I was. And I say that. I think a lot of people, maybe if you've kind of either watched Mark or kind of just you felt like there was something that you weren't all that surprised, I guess. And that's, if that's the case, then why is he back there? And it's not that he has a track record either, right? Like he hasn't been doing it. It's not like he's had a lot of success in just a one-time deal. Like it literally was his first time. So yeah, they go Gervin Hall. He doesn't get a return, but they put him out there. Then they put Mark Pope after that. He had that return you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know what they want to do, right? Do you want a guy that can maybe make that dynamic play? Do you want a guy that's a little more sure-handed, that's going to field the punt and not fumble it? It's unfortunate that that's where you're at because, like you said, Miami's had really good returners in the past. And for me personally, I'd like for them to recruit really good returners, like get guy, especially punt return, because I think kick return is such a different return. But punt return, it takes an important skill and an attribute. And I think if you've been doing it at the high school level, developing that confidence. And I talked about the creativity with Derek's running ability, but in a punt returner, it's even more so. You've got to have that vision quickly, that confidence, the agility, the speed, but also, just that vision that you need to have. And we'll see with Mark, it seems like if that's the guy they chose right from the beginning, then, are they going to make a move quickly? But he definitely can't be fumbling, especially touched on it once again. These games are so huge coming up. You can't afford that kind of stuff. So we'll see. I think it's interesting that Gervin gets back there because off the top of my head, we have not seen a lot of defensive players involved in the return game at Miami in recent years. So I thought it was interesting that they decided to go Gervin, but I think if it's not Gervin, then somebody else. You talked about Jaylen Knighton. He's a guy I'd love to see in the kick return game as well. And I also, too, I know you want to talk about special teams or talk about the kickers and stuff, but I think the return, everybody else on the field gets overlooked, and just, the people that are out there, whether it's the gunners, whether it's the guys blocking on returns, I think those are so important too. And I remember former special teams coach Michael Barrow being in one of his meetings, wasn't a team meeting, but I've been in his office, like watching him dissect certain things. And I think it's very interesting to see how the eye that he had for all the little small details that it takes in special teams with the other guys. And I think that's important as well. Not just the returners, not just the kicker or punter. And so those guys will need to be important factors as well. And you'd like to see some guys really develop roles there. Because like you said, it's an important part of the game without a doubt.
That's a great point you make. We get caught up with, the players returning the actual punts, the kickoffs, but it actually takes an entire team, blocking down the field to actually, set the play up for success at times, So, no, I completely understand. I mean, imagine if David Njoku doesn't lay down that big hit against Duke. I don't think we returned that infamous lateral touchdown, miracle in Durham that they call it. So, no, I completely agree, Christopher. It takes a whole team, for a successful punt return. I'm just, special teams unit, Miami had the identity of being elite at that area. It hasn't been the same. I want it to get back. And I think we're trying to figure out who that guy is. We're throwing in names like Mark Pope, Gervin Hall, who I was surprised when Gervin Hall was the backup punt returner. So I was expecting more Restrepo or Knighton. But we'll see as the season goes along. KJ Osborne was our guy midway moving forward. He did a tremendous job. So I'm not worried. We'll get it done. Christopher, defensive line. I know there were big expectations at defensive end. We have a very good, talented group. What were your first thoughts of seeing Jalen Phillip and Quincy Roche in action?
Well, let's start with Jalen Phillips, right? Because he was such an unknown in the sense of what is he going to be? It felt like if we take this back a little bit, when he decided to transfer to Miami, there was questions with his injuries. Is he going to be able to play again? He actually announced a retirement. So what is this guy going to be? Former number 1 ranked player in the country coming out of high school. Is he going to be a playmaker? And honestly, is he going to be a linebacker? Is he going to be a defensive end? If you think about the question marks coming in with Jaylen, then last year doesn't even practice because of the injuries while he's at So you really don't know. You're obviously excited. Then we see it in spring ball, right? He was out there every day. You saw it. You saw the burst. Yeah, maybe there was a little rustiness, but I was not worried at all. He was going to be a playmaker. And I think that's what we saw in the first game where, yeah, he didn't have a sack, but if you're watching him, and I was, had my mind on him quite a bit watching him, he was putting a lot of pressure on. His burst is very quick off the edge. He did a good job. I think he's another guy you want to talk about, maybe a guy that could be a little rusty for game situations. I mentioned King. I mean, Jaylen didn't play last year, and it's been a while since he's played. I think he's going to keep getting better, get into a really nice groove. I think he's going to be – I still think he's going to have a good year. He actually graded out pretty well on the Pro Football Focus stuff, so I think that's great. And I think he can have a big year. I think I'm not in the minority in the say that I think he's going to be Miami's defensive breakout player of the year. I don't think that's a crazy statement. I still expect that based on what I saw in the first game. Switching to Quincy Roche, you saw the sack. You saw him throw up the U. Got to be excited about that. That's what he does. He gets sacks. I think the both of them are going to continue to work together. And one of the things that happened during the game was they actually talked about it, and they switched sides in the second half a little bit with the left and right kind of interchanging where they were lining up. I thought that was good. And they've been talking about their connection once Quincy arrived in January. So I think that's good on the field connection where you're starting to get into it. I think we saw with Nested Jade Silvera. I think you got to be encouraged. Wasn't the best game, that he'll ever play. I hope not, but you saw signs of him being out there quite a bit. One thing that caught my eye during the game was there was a time where he didn't want to come off the field, and I thought that was great. Just that he wanted to be out there, whether it's maybe a little bit difficult to decide whether to bring him out or not. But I thought that was just good. He was very engaged, is my point. And I thought that was good. Talked after the game. You got to check out the interview. Very interesting post-game thing. But just an interesting guy. I think he's a guy that if he's involved, engaged, and all that stuff, I think it's going to be good for Miami. And the defensive tackles are so important for the defensive ends, Roche and Phillips, because the attention can be on them. And if the defensive tackles aren't good enough, not doing their thing, they can put a lot of pressure. The offensive line can really shift their focus to the defensive ends and really neutralize them a lot easier if those defensive tackles aren't doing much. So I think it's very important. John Ford as well. Jordan Miller got a lot of playing time. I expect those three to get in. That'll be their rotation, although you saw Jared Harrison Hunt in there quite a bit. I think that's got to be encouraging. He's got to make plays when you're in there. Maybe you don't get all the snaps that you want, but you got to make plays when you're in there, and that's the key. I think you saw positive signs of the defensive line. I think when you watched it, though, you had to have been missing Gregory Rousseau with those other two. The way if they could have mixed all those guys in, I think it would have been very exciting, but it is what it is. I still think they have a shot to have a very good defensive end for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I loved how you mentioned Nesta Silvera. I thought he was very well conditioned this game. I think Nesta in the past, we haven't seen a very well conditioned Nesta Silvera. Health wise, he's been battling injuries, so I think he's healthy. He's in the best shape of his career. He looks like it, and I'm happy to see him move forward. I think he showed flashes of great play. We saw it against Florida State as well this past season. I think he's putting it together in his junior campaign. So I'm excited about Nesta. Would like to see a little bit better play from Jonathan Ford, specifically defensive tackle. That is a position we need to be successful this year. We're going to depend on them heavily. Defensive end. Look, we're very spoiled with Gregory Rousseau. I mean, he's going to be a top 5 pick, first-round pick. I mean, the guy led college football in sacks. I mean, he was a special player. They call him the tarantula for a reason. Here's my thing. Jalen Phillips has not played in 2 years of football. Like, not like De'Ara King, who's like practiced and like played in real games. Like Jalen Phillips was like literally like out of the game for a year making music, comes back in and transfers to Miami, has to sit out. Wasn't even fully, in football shape, So it will come with Jalen Phillips, man. I'm not worried. I thought he played a very good first half for a guy who's been through all that, So once he's in midweek form, we're going to see a very, very effective Jalen Phillips. Quincy Roche, first game as a Miami Hurricane, similar to De'Ara King. Hey, he got 1 sack. Let's build off of it. Okay, if we get 1 sack a game, that's going to be 11 sacks this season. That's a successful senior season. So, hey, I'm all for it. And Javari Harvey as well, look out for him. Anyone who runs a 4.5 40 and looks like Mr. Olympia, I'm all for it, man. That kid is going to be special. Just when it's his time, it's his time. He will be a star at the next level. I'm very confident in that. Christopher, my chat has been going crazy. I think all of Canes Nation has been going crazy over cornerback play. It's the topic. What were your thoughts about our cornerbacks?
Well, going in, they need to be better, right? I mean, last year you saw certain things with, DJ Ivey, Al Blades Jr., split time as a starter, played a lot in their sophomore seasons. So they come in, they've got to be better than what you saw last year, right? I think the disappointment was you saw that DJ gives up the touchdown early. You saw Al give up some catches. And I think people want to see that move forward, right? That's what you want to see. A lot of attention, certainly on the cornerback position. Cornerback coach Mike Rump taking a lot of heat, definitely. And I think it stems back, with DJ and Al kind of going back to the recruiting. If you remember that class, that's the same class as Patrick Surtain. These are local guys. Tyson Campbell was there. Josh Jobe. These are guys that Miami didn't get. So the guys that they did get with Blades and Ivy, okay, then if they're not as highly regarded as those guys, well, they've got to develop and be really good players, right? And I think that you want to see that jump as juniors. You were disappointed with what you saw at times in that game. So now you're looking for answers, right? If it's not going to be DJ, are they going to move off of him or Al Blades? If not, are they going to give Corey Couch an opportunity? You saw Corey play about almost 30 snaps in the game. He gives up that big play. I know he forced the fumble, but he gave up like a 30-yard catch. That was disappointing, but he did grade out well. According to Pro Football Focus, he graded out well, so that's a positive sign. For me, I'd like to see more of Corey. I like him in the sense that one of the things I asked Mark Pope about in the offseason was just, what's it like going against Corey? What do you think of him? And he said, don't let the size fool you. He's aggressive. He'll play you hard. And he's like, that's why I like him. And I think that's good because what I see from Corey, he's a guy that makes plays on the ball. He's a guy that can intercept passes. I know what his size is. I'm not worried about it. There's guys in the league that are 5'10". It's not as big of a deal. And bottom line is you've got to cover. So I think Corey Couch is a guy to keep an eye on. I know maybe people like Christian Williams with his size, speed, heard positive things about him as well. And then maybe, who knows, Marcus Clark, a freshman that, had the interception in a scrimmage. Isaiah Dunson, good length at that position. I don't know if they're going to get involved. I don't know if they're going to be able to leapfrog all those guys. I find it very interesting that, what are they going to do at corner in the sense with, those Ivy and Blades, they played. This is who you have, right? So that's just those two guys. They played last year. Are you going to make a move with Couch and Williams? Because Ivy and Blades certainly need to play better. I'll start with Ivy a little bit. Good length, right? Good length. He's got good size. You want to see more from him. He just has those lapses where he doesn't make the right play, isn't covering his guy the way he needs to be guarded. I think he will be key, in particular against bigger receivers in matchups. You need to have someone that can especially handle guys off the line. But he had that matchup against Watkins, who's 6'3", 210 in the last game, and he's got to do a little bit better than that. Although Watkins was held to just the 2 catches, the way they mixed it up, and I felt like Watkins was kind of dealing with something. But as far as Blades go, maybe a positive that you're looking for, he is a competitive guy, right? Like he doesn't track the ball right all the time, although he had that great pass breakup on the sideline where he nearly had an interception, tracked it well. And I thought that was a good positive sign for him because that's kind of the thing that holds him back a little bit, where he doesn't track the ball, have good footwork when the ball's in the air. And I thought we saw a good sign of that. So that is a positive. You really like his competitiveness. He definitely cares. He's one of those things. He's always going to keep coming back. So hopefully it improves because oftentimes every year, or it feels like a lot of years, we're like, okay, the secondary needs to be better and all this. But all of a sudden you look at the schedule and it's not like they're going to be tested with a lot of high-powered passing attacks in the ACC. However, with this year, starting next week against Louisville, they'll throw the ball. Clemson obviously will throw the ball. James Blackman at Florida State wants to throw the ball and things like that. So there's going to be offenses that they will face, particularly early on here, and the cornerbacks need to be better. The defensive line providing pressure will certainly help, but without a doubt, you got to guard guys. It's just, and we'll see, but they definitely need to be better without question.
Yeah, no, cornerback play needs to improve. DJ Ivey, he has a problem. He doesn't turn his head to the ball, when they're throwing to his receiver. When he's covering the receiver, he plays eyes to hands. I would like him to turn his body more. Hey, it is what it is. The missed assignments, the blown coverages, it needs to end. We saw what happened against Georgia Tech on special teams. We see what happens when you miss an assignment, how deadly it can be, how much it can change the momentum of a game. Al Blades is our best corner right now. I'm looking for who's our number 2 guy after Al Blades. Like you said, he's a competitor. I think he's a good corner at the college football level. I'm not worried about him. I would like to see Corey Couch specifically at the nickel position. I think that's where he's going to excel the most at the next level. I think Bandy could have excelled the most at the nickel position. Once you put Couch and Bandy out in the boundary, I think it's a whole different ball game. So I think they can have a lot of success. Couch playing the nickel position. I would just like to see him there, just strictly at nickel. Christian Williams, Isaiah Dunson, would like to see a lot more. If Blades doesn't get the job done as your number 2 corner out in the boundary, go with a true freshman, and it's rebuilt. Go with Christian Williams and just rebuild at that position. Because in my opinion, how much patience can we have? How much sense of urgency is left in the sense of like, hey, it's fight or flight mode at this position? Christopher, do you think Mike Rump, in a sense, is on the hot seat? Do you get that feel this year? This is a must improvement year for Mike Rump, or are you satisfied with Mike Rump? Because I know, like you said, he's facing a lot of pressure. He gets a lot of heat. I mean, what do you think's going on there?
Well, I think it's the heat from the fans, and I think it stems from the recruiting, particularly locally. You want to get those elite guys. I think that's why there's a lot of pressure, or that's why a lot of people have issues with them. I think that's where it starts. As far as with Coach, I think he's fine there. I mean, we've seen you don't hear the grumblings that he's going to move on, and he's actually lasted. When Manny decided to be head coach, he kept Mike on. So I don't think that's necessarily an issue. I think it is a good fit in terms of with what Manny wants to do and things like that. I just think that they want to see the results. And I say that good fit in terms of his personality and those kind of things, whereas maybe some of the other coaches that have been through the Miami program and have gone didn't have that exact connection that I think that you're looking for. So I just think people want him to be better and recruit better. And every time a big-time recruit picks a different school, it just adds to the attention. And then you see a game. A few things kind of just real quick. I think with the corners too, just a couple of notes. Look, I don't think college corners are nearly as good as you want them to be in general. I think it doesn't matter if it's at Miami or any other school. I think that there's always opportunities to attack corners at the college level. I think that's why you start to see maybe more passing numbers up. I don't think college corners are as good as you'd like them to be in general. Just a general statement. With that being said, one thing I wanted to mention too, going into the game, and this is a key why Miami's corners need to be better. UAB came into the game and talking to a source that they felt like they could attack Miami's secondary. They felt like that was an area that they could do well in. And this was going into the season, right? If you start putting stuff on tape that you're allowing more stuff, maybe more teams are going to be like, look, we can really go at these guys. Maybe we thought we couldn't. Maybe it's because we thought they had size and speed, and we are shying away from going deep on a Miami team because that doesn't sound maybe that's not the typical thing. But if it starts getting it out on film that there is a weakness there, I think that's why you've got to be better, not just for the in-game actual results, but the actual moving forward and game planning for other teams, why it's so important. So I think that the key is this is who they have right now. They've got to be better. They brought in a lot of defensive backs, the safeties and whatnot. And look, if it shows that they can't play a lot of man, look for them to adjust and maybe go more press or a little bit more off coverage, maybe a little bit more zone there, and kind of figure that out. But I think that there are adjustments to be made as well. And once again, I'll just be surprised if they do make moves with starting lineups and stuff, just because, look, how much production did Gregory Rousseau have last year? Right. And he was still not starting, not even that he wasn't starting. He wasn't very playing that much, like 20 snaps a game, or it just wasn't very much. It wasn't just that, oh, we don't start him, but we play him a bunch. No, it took him 5-6 games. And I think that was crazy. So I think that's, if you look at it from that standpoint, I mean, what in your head, you're like, what does a corner have to do to get on the field more? If they couldn't even get Rousseau on the field last year until midway through. But we'll see. And I'm always very cautious. I think it's a very challenging part of coaching is being proactive, before the actual issue arises, right? Everybody can make changes after a loss, after you give up 400 yards passing. I'm not going to say that that's what's going to happen, but I think that what you're seeing is you're seeing signs of a little bit more of a weakness right now. And you want to see some adjustments before it gets to, those bad results. And I think that's what fans are starting to see a little bit right now.
Yeah, no, let's fix it. I mean, Louisville's got a very effective offense coming week 2. We saw what they did to our defense this past season. New year, new team. Let's see, man. Let's fix it. Hey, I think we got away with a lot of bad passes, a lot of drop passes on UAB's side. So, hey, let's see what happens against a very good offensive juggernaut in the ACC with Louisville. Chris, linebacker play. Are you satisfied? Zach McLeod, Bradley Jennings started the game. We didn't see too much of Avery Huff. Sam Brooks. Steed seems healthy, ready to go. That is great for depth. I think depth is there. How fully satisfied are you with our linebackers?
I think it's what you should expect. Okay. Like, I think that these guys are just kind of solid, just kind of guys in a sense. I thought Bradley Jennings, they were very encouraged by him. And I thought he looked fine out there. I thought he made some tackles. If you're expecting like any of these linebackers or him or McLeod to have one of these like really good breakout seasons, I think that's asking a little too much. Right. The big thing is they need to be solid enough where they're not giving up big plays. I think there were a little bit of times where maybe some guys got to the perimeter a little bit more than you'd like. But all in all, like, I felt like the tackling was pretty solid for the defense. You look up and UAB, although they gave up yards in that first drive, they didn't have a bunch of yards, just the 2 touchdowns, one coming on a short field. So even with the linebacker play, maybe, just kind of being average right now, I don't think it didn't hurt. It seemed to hurt Miami in that first game. And I think as long as they, make the tackles up the middle, I think that'll be a big thing because they can get more help on the outside with their safeties can come down and hit, or corners, or if they're even if their defensive ends are able to get out of position and kind of get more to the sideline to put pressure, maybe not make the tackle, but definitely close in on that gap. I just think they got to be solid in it, and I think this is what we're going to see. I'd be surprised at this point if they make a move at linebacker with Brooks or Huff, even though the fans want to see these young guys get out and move because you hear about their athleticism and speed and those 2 factors. Everybody's excited about those 2 factors, but I think it's going to be Jennings and McLeod throughout the year, and then whenever guys get opportunities, they need to make plays. And I think just a steady group, I think, is maybe your expectations. You just don't want that group to be a weakness where teams are running the ball really well, getting out on the perimeter, and the linebackers really trailing plays. It's definitely not what you want.
No, absolutely. And you never know in the game of football. We may, like you said, Rousseau was not getting any playing time. Scott Patchen was ahead of him. Hey, they went with the change. Maybe Sam Brooks, Avery Huff gets in, and the rest is history. You got to take advantage of your opportunity. I like what I saw from Bradley Jennings for a guy who hasn't played football in quite a while, dealing with injuries. Man, I thought he was a nice welcoming back to the college football game because he was out for a while. I mean, he didn't play at all this past season. So very nice to see him. And he comes from a linebacker, a family. His father played at Florida State. His younger brother's a highly touted recruit in high school right now. So, hey, look out for Bradley Jennings. Maybe he'll have that breakout season. I don't know, but I think he'll have a good year, bearing what his injuries were in the past at Miami. I thought a nice silver lining for this game, besides our run-heavy offense, was our safeties. I think we just found the future at Miami with this position group, with Gervin Hall and Bubba Bolden this season. I think those are our starters moving forward, and I think they do a tremendous job. I think we have a very good safety duo, at strong and free safety. How did you think of their performance? I thought open field tackling was great.
Yeah, Gervin actually graded out well, and so did Bubba. One of the top, both of them in the top 10 on the team, regardless of offense, defense, or playing time. So I think that was a good sign. I think you want to see Bubba continue to make strides, and we'll see. Amari Carter's still going to be in that mix. He will get playing time. I thought one thing that kind of caught my eye a little bit was Gervin Hall playing time was going up last year. With the mix of safeties that they had late in the year, he was essentially playing almost every snap. This game, that does get cut into a little bit, but he still plays well. So I think that's good to see. I think with those safeties, though, you're looking for, okay, let's take a jump. Let's start getting our hands on some balls, really making plays either behind the line of scrimmage or just kind of really being that burst. look, we've talked about what Miami has on defense, right? So defensive ends, you feel very good that they can both be above average players at defensive end. The other 9 guys on the team, who's going to be a really above average player? Gervin showed signs last year, but Gervin still needs to be better than he was a year ago. And I think maybe you saw a little bit of that in the first game, and we'll see as the season goes on. You'd like to see him and Bubba and Amari, any of those guys, make plays in these big games. Next game against Louisville is definitely a huge one for them. They'll have opportunities. Particularly, they've got to contain Tutu Atwell. They've got to contain the running game and the quarterback play as well. Louisville comes in with 3 really good players at all positions, and the safeties will be challenged because, once again, if we just touched on the linebackers, if they're not going to make all these crazy plays that you're hoping for, well, somebody else has to. You're not expecting a Greg Threet type season where he has 140 tackles or whatever it was, but you expect those guys to be able to provide a little bit more support and really cover the holes that maybe the linebackers are leaving up, or the fact that they go to a 4-2-5 as a striker position. It's not the natural 3 linebacker set quite often. So you definitely need more guys in that secondary making tackles. And I definitely think it starts with the safeties because they have the ability to move, they have the athleticism, and you want to see them start making strides towards being those above average players that you're hoping for them to be.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited. I'm excited to see, how they perform against Louisville this upcoming season. Like I said, man, I think Gervin Hall has made a big jump from last year. We've seen flashes of his play, how elite he can be. Bubba Bolden, the short time span that we had him the past season, he graded out very well every game. He played extremely well. So, hey, let's get a full healthy season with both of those guys, another year of college football under their belt. Hey, I think the sky's the limit with those 2 guys moving forward as our strong and free safety. Christopher, were you surprised we didn't see the turnover chain?
Of course, right? I mean, I actually thought that was kind of like a bold prediction of mine. I thought they were going to improve their turnovers that created from a year ago. I just felt like, okay, you bring back a lot of guys in the secondary.
Right.
Maybe if each one can kind of do a little bit more. I thought the pressure from the defensive end. So yeah, you're expecting to be, and also there's not many games that they go without seeing that thing. And but on the flip side, what UAB did in the first game against Central Arkansas, where they do really control the ball. Maybe keep it a little bit short. Although Johnson had that awful interception in the first game. So you're hoping, and you did see it, right? Like you saw a couple opportunities.
Yeah.
Guys had their hands on the ball. They've got to go ahead and close it.
Wow.
And I know, if anybody that plays those NCAA football games, always the commentator, when a guy drops it, it's like, well, that's why they play on defense, or they got hands like feet or stuff like that. So I thought that kind of popped up, but I definitely think it's coming. Although I'd be surprised if someone has one of those, maybe that you won't see a 6 interception type season individually. I just think guys can do a little bit more. Bubba with 1 interception last year. Certainly you'd like to see him have more than 1, DJ Ivy with 3, Blades with 2. So you'd like for maybe you can get a couple more, things like that and kind of build on that. And I mentioned Corey Couch. If he's going to be on the field more, those are things maybe he can get a couple interceptions as well. So I think maybe I'm looking at the interceptions because the forced fumbles are a little bit more difficult to predict, although you got to expect the defensive ends to be able to do that. Maybe if Bradley Jennings, they keep hearing about, and you saw it too, the flashes of that hard-hitting ability. And then Amari Carter as well. He's a guy that hits hard. Those guys can definitely pop the ball open, and you're hoping to get some forced fumbles there, and we'll see it. I know it would have been great to have in the opener because everybody wants to see what the new look is. With it, you saw the touchdown rings. So we'll see, hopefully, soon.
Christopher, what's your game outlook against Louisville? What do you think Miami's going to target? I mean, we were very successful offensively last year. I think Jaron Williams tied Deshaun Watson's ACC touchdown record. I mean, that's pretty impressive. What do you think the outlook is?
Well, it starts there, right, on offense. And Miami should definitely be confident. The 52-27 win last year. And that was actually Miami's last win before the UAB game. So I think that going in that they should have a lot of confidence, and that's good for a team that only won 6 games last year. So I think it's good that they felt, that they can do well. Although Louisville certainly feels like they've got to improve that defense. And I mentioned what they've got to do, what they have at the offensive weapons that they have. I think for Miami, the key will be, again, De'Aaron King in the passing game. He's got to get that thing going. I think he will. I don't think, although, when you look at it, De'Aaron's last 6 games, when you start looking at his passing numbers, it's not what it was before that. So you're hoping that's not a trend as things are moving forward. But the only thing I'd say is he's mixing his run runs and the touchdowns are there. So you're not that concerned. But anyways, I think the big thing is just Miami's being able to continue to attack on offense the way they did last year. I think that's going to be the key. And definitely it got away from Louisville, even though you saw some positive signs with either with Atwell or these other things that were going on, that they were able to put up a little bit of points, but Miami just kept coming. Was it just one of those games that got away or got it going from Miami, or is it something that they can really see from last year and really build on for this year? I think that'll be the key. But going there, everything going on, obviously a road game, different environment than what it would have been, but it's still going to be a challenge to go on the road, and we'll see how guys play. And I think it's such a big thing. I think anybody that's followed football for a long time, or just anytime, you always talk about that jump from game 1 to game 2, and Miami's got to be better than they were in game 1, and we'll see. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about after that second game, definitely.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a night game, 7:30 p.m. It was changed from 3:30 p.m. It's going to be on primetime, ABC. I can't wait. They play Western Kentucky, I believe, today, and they're only favored by 12. Western Kentucky, that's a very talented offense that they've developed there over the years. Great quarterback play over time. I actually thought Jaron Williams should have transferred there. Would have been great for his career. But anyways, moving forward, just look out for Louisville and their offense in today's game, how they play. How do other teams play as well offensively? North Carolina is playing Syracuse, Dino Babers' offense, Phillip Longo's offense at UNC, Sam Howell as well. That might be a barn burner. We'll see if teams are rusty. Miami was a little rusty. My prediction, Miami against Louisville, it's going to be kind of a Big 12 style football, first to 45. I'm going to say Miami 41, Louisville 31 will win. Their defense is very weak. They just lost their best offensive lineman to the draft. I think he went in the first round for the Jets. I could be wrong on the team, but I know they have a new offensive line unit as a whole moving forward. And their quarterback play is very subpar. It's not strong at all. They rely on their wide receiver core to make plays, make big plays for the offense moving forward to succeed. So that's my prediction. Chris, do you have a prediction?
I don't. I haven't been able to. I want to watch the game tonight. Like, I'm excited.
Right.
8:00, Western Kentucky. I want to see that. And
that's fair. Yeah.
But I'll definitely come out with it. And not just that, but you also dive into some other stuff. Watching things over again is always a big key, and just kind of taking things in. But definitely we'll have a prediction. I'm not going to shy away from it either way, whatever it ends up being. But definitely want to see what Louisville has, because just like Miami, we're expecting a lot of stuff, expecting what is this going to look like. And then we saw it in the first game, and now you kind of have a basis. So I think that's great. And again, we'll see what happens. I'm very excited to see Louisville in action for sure.
Love it, man. College football is back. Christopher, what's your outlook on Miami Hurricanes basketball, man? I'm a huge fan. I know you cover the team. What you got?
Yeah, I think the big thing that you like is guys are going to, some depth that you like, where you've got an extra point guard or different forwards. I think Nasir Brooks, if you're talking about guys that are going to make a difference, like maybe that wins above replacement stat you hear in other sports. I think the upgrade there, particularly on the defensive end, is going to be very helpful for Miami. I think what you saw from Isaiah Wong last year, you want that to build on that. And then again, you got McGusty, and don't forget on Chris Likes. I think he made improvements as a junior, can continue to make improvements. And I think if you start with those three, mix in the freshman and Earl Timberlake, they're on the perimeter. You get Harlan Beverly going a little bit. You're going to have a nice perimeter play, and then at power forward, you'll figure it out. I think they'll go Sam Wardenberg, but I think that they can have a solid group. I just think that Nasir Brooks addition is going to be big for the team, and it really lets other guys play in different roles, and they definitely needed that defensive presence down low. And I think Brooks is going to be one of those, solid 10, 11 rebound guys, 60% shooting, and then get, 7, 8, 9 rebounds a game, a couple block shots would be ideal, play efficient. And I think that'll be good. And hopefully, it's just around the corner, hopefully.
Yeah, no, Nasir Brooks, that's going to be the difference maker. How many times were second chance, third chance opportunities Miami gave to opponents? The whole past season, we needed big men down low. Our best player down low was Sam Wardenberg, and let's be honest, he was basically one of our better three-point shooters. He was basically a stretch four. Let's be real with that. Chris likes his game. I think teams have adapted to his play. They're being a little rougher on him, and ACC refs are kind of noticing as well, like, hey, we're going to give teams the benefit of the doubt, because if I just touch the guy, he'll fly 10 feet. Harlan Beverly, he is an elite passer. He has outstanding body motion. Those are things you cannot teach. Once the game slows down for Harlan Beverly and he understands how to run the point, watch out. That may be a future NBA point guard. Isaiah Wong, man, what a under the radar recruit. I think he was a 3-star out of the Northeast. Hey, man, great talent. That kid is going to be special moving forward. Earl Timberlake, when do we see basketball players actually take pride in defense? Already a projected late first round pick, my apologies. And I'm excited about Matt Cross as well, man. Hey, watch out. If he can develop early, we'll have some nice depth. We can rotate 9 to 10 guys. I still need a true point guard, which is Chris Likes. But when Chris Likes is off the bench, who is your number one leading the team? Because, I mean, look, it took us it literally was so difficult just to get past half court. McGusty couldn't run the point. Beverly couldn't run the point. Either Wong at times could, but he would make a lot of rookie mistakes. So, hey, man, I'm excited. I think it was a big jump from this past season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I think Isaiah Wong is going to be a key in that, and maybe the point guard responsibilities. I like his ball handling ability. I like his ability to get to the lane and make plays there as well, get drawn fouls and things like that. They get Bensley Joseph coming in. He's
right.
And then Elijah Eleni, able to get him in on the transfer, kind of provide that solid maybe scoring for next season. So, yeah, I think that there's things to like. I think, we'll see how everything kind of fits and definitely works out. And you mentioned Earl Timberlake, Matt Cross. They're definitely going to look for him to be a shooter on the perimeter in his first season. That's 6'7", 6'8" size. Yeah. And also provide some toughness and really help with the rebounding. That was the thing last year that stood out to me. I mean, they were getting out rebounded almost every game. And I think the addition of Brooks, maybe a little bit more size than Timberlake and Cross there at the small forward positions, can hopefully help on the rebounding there for sure.
Hey, I'll stand by it. Jack McClinton, greatest college basketball three-point shooter of all time. Prove me wrong. It wasn't J.J. Redick or Steph Curry. Christopher Stock, thank you so much, man, for joining us. Inside the U, 10K, outstanding job. Does amazing stuff at 247 Sports, man. Keep doing a great job, Christopher, man. The sky's the limit, man. And we definitely do greatly appreciate the work that you put in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. Once again, keep up that positive attitude. Keep doing your thing on your channel, having everybody on. I think it's great. I definitely appreciate you asking me and inviting me. I definitely had a good time talking about the team. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully you guys are excited. But, yeah, plenty of stuff on InsideTheU.com with the website, with the content articles. I have a video that I'm working on now that I'll have up as well. And then, obviously, you can check out the Inside the U YouTube channel, like you mentioned. And if anybody needs to follow me on Twitter, you can at Inside the U. So definitely appreciate you, Paul. Keep doing your thing. Stay positive. Keep up that positive attitude and everything. I think that's great. That's what we got to be.
Appreciate it, Christopher. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. And always, all about the U.